The summer I didn't say no. There's this thing people say when you're young, don't peak in high school. I used to roll my eyes at that. Marcus and I were the golden couple back then, senior class sweethearts, prom royalty, the kind of duo that made teachers smile and freshmen swoon. People said we'd get married one day. We laughed at that, but deep down, I think we believed it too. After college, we both moved back to our hometown. Not because we had to, we had other options, but because it was comfortable. Familiar streets. Familiar faces. His parents offered us the upstairs apartment in their duplex, rent-free. I got a job at the local library, he started working construction with his uncle's crew. It felt like a safe landing. But the truth is, coming back didn't feel like coming home. It felt like a pause button. Everyone else seemed to think we were thriving. You two are still together? That's amazing. Wow, high school sweethearts, that never happens anymore. You guys are so lucky. Lucky. It's a weird word when your life starts to feel like a script you didn't write. We had our routines. Grocery runs on Thursdays. Date night every other Friday, always at the same diner with the sticky menus and bottomless fries. Sunday mornings in bed watching documentaries we never finished. He kissed me on the forehead like it was automatic. I laughed at his dumb puns out of habit more than humor. We never fought. But we never talked, either, not really. Conversations were weather, bills, and the Netflix queue. I missed being surprised. I missed feeling wanted, not just known. And then, one night in June, Jamie walked back into our lives. It was a bonfire at the lake, the kind of gathering everyone in this town finds out about without ever being invited. Jamie showed up late, wearing that cocky smirk I remembered from our junior year, but with a scruffy beard and a tan that didn't belong in this zip code. He and Marcus hugged like old friends. Jamie had been gone for 2 years, backpacking through Southeast Asia or South America or both. He told stories like they were poems. Everyone gathered around him, soaking it in. He was sunburned freedom in a town full of dust. I sat on a folding chair beside Marcus, beer sweating in my hand, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like a stranger in my own relationship. Then Jamie looked over the fire at me. Really looked. Hey, he said, like he hadn't forgotten. And maybe that was the moment it started. Not love. Not lust. Just possibility. Jamie started showing up everywhere after that bonfire. At first, it made sense. He was Marcus's friend, after all. They had years of memories, football games, dumb pranks, nights sneaking beer into the woods. I'd always been around the edges of that circle back in high school, tagging along, laughing too loud, the girlfriend who was cool enough to hang. But now it was different. Now Jamie wasn't just part of our group. He was orbiting me. Quietly. Carefully. Intentionally. It started with little things. He'd swing by the library when I was working. Said he was looking for travel books, which was funny, because he never checked any out. Instead, he'd lean on the desk and ask questions like, "Do you ever think about leaving?" or "What would you do if no one expected anything from you?" Questions Marcus never asked. Questions I hadn't asked myself in years. One afternoon, as I was shelving books, Jamie walked up behind me, just close enough that I felt the air shift. "You ever feel like you're playing a role someone else cast you in?" he said. I turned, startled. "What are you talking about?" He smiled. "You just look like someone who used to laugh louder." That night, I couldn't sleep. Marcus was beside me, out cold, arm thrown across my waist like always. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about how long it had been since we'd had a real conversation. Not logistics. Not groceries. But us. The next weekend, Jamie joined us at the lake again. This time, Marcus invited him. "We should catch up, you know?" Marcus said. "Feels good to have him back." I smiled and nodded, like my stomach wasn't twisting. The three of us sat on the dock, feet dangling over the edge. The sun was setting in that perfect cliché way, pinks and oranges smeared across the sky like some kind of apology. At one point, Marcus got up to grab more beers. Jamie stayed behind. I tried not to notice how he shifted closer. Tried not to notice how he didn't say anything for a long time, just looked out at the water. Then he said, so low I barely caught it, he doesn't see you anymore, does he? I should have shut it down. I should have said something sharp, defensive, loyal. But I just looked at him. And I didn't say no. I didn't tell anyone about the doc. About what Jamie said. About the way I didn't pull away when his knee brushed mine. It wasn't cheating. Not technically. Not yet. But it felt like something cracked open that night, something I couldn't close again. The next morning, I woke up before Marcus. I watched him sleep for a while, his mouth slightly open, chest rising and falling like he didn't have a clue anything had changed. And maybe he didn't. Not on the surface. But I had. That week, I caught myself doing things I couldn't explain. Wearing makeup to work when I usually didn't. Leaving my phone on silent around Marcus. Smiling too much when Jamie texted me stupid things like, Jamie, if I were a book, would you recommend me to a friend or quietly return me before the late fee kicked in? I wanted to say, you're the book I shouldn't be reading at all. Instead, I texted. That depends. What's the plot twist? And that's how it was. Flirting that lived in the margins of the day. Guilt that whispered but never screamed. Jamie started hanging around more, not just with Marcus, but with me. He'd offer to help at the library when we hosted kids' events. He'd bring iced coffee on Saturdays and claim he was just in the neighborhood. He knew what he was doing. And worse, so did I. The thing is, Jamie wasn't perfect. He was messy, impulsive, a little arrogant. But he noticed things. He'd say stuff like, you touch your necklace when you're nervous, or you always look away when someone compliments you. Marcus hadn't said something like that in years. One night, Jamie walked me to my car after a local festival. Marcus had gone home early with a headache. The air was thick with summer heat and leftover music. We stood by the driver's side door, the parking lot mostly empty. Do you ever think about it? Jamie asked, voice soft. About what? This. Us. If we'd met in a different life. I didn't answer right away. I looked at him, really looked, and wondered how the hell I got here. Wondered if he could hear my heart pounding. He didn't kiss me. Not yet. But the pause between us stretched so long, it may as well have been one. I got in the car. My hands were shaking. At home, Marcus was already in bed. I slipped under the covers like nothing had happened. He reached for me in his sleep, mumbled something about needing to mow the lawn tomorrow. I stared at the ceiling, blinking hard. Still not cheating. Still not saying no. It was a Tuesday when it happened. Not a Friday night, not a birthday, not some dramatic crescendo like in the movies. Just a hot, humid Tuesday with too much sun and not enough air conditioning at the library. Jamie came in around 4. He wasn't supposed to. We hadn't texted. I was reshelving the biography section, hair sticking to the back of my neck, mind floating somewhere far from the Dewey Decimal System. You look like you're about 10 seconds from quitting civilization, he said. I looked up and smiled before I could stop myself. He brought an iced coffee. My usual oat milk, 1 pump vanilla, extra ice. I hadn't even told him how I liked it. He'd just remembered. Or guessed right. I don't know which is worse. I'm on break in 5, I said. I shouldn't have said it. I knew that. But I said it anyway. We walked to the park down the street, sat on one of those old wooden benches half sunk into the grass. The trees above gave us shade, and the cicadas made everything feel slower, heavier. I don't remember what we talked about. Probably nothing. Everything. What I do remember is the moment our hands brushed. And then, they didn't unbrush. We sat there like that, fingers tentatively tangled, until I turned to him and whispered something I barely remember. Maybe this is a bad idea, maybe nothing at all. And then he kissed me. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't violent or messy or hungry. It was worse. It was gentle. Familiar. Like something we'd done before in another life. Like he already knew the shape of me. When it ended, I just sat there, stunned. My heart pounding so loud I was afraid someone across town could hear it. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. I stood up slowly, wiped my palms on my jeans, and walked back to the library like a ghost wearing my own skin. That night, Marcus made tacos and told me about some plumbing job that went sideways. I nodded, laughed when I was supposed to. Let him kiss my forehead. Crawled into bed beside him like I wasn't carrying someone else's lips on mine. And I couldn't stop thinking about how it hadn't been one big decision. No lightning strike. No moment where I stood at a crossroads and chose the wrong path. It was 1,000 small yeses. And never once saying no. After the kiss, things didn't explode. There was no dramatic fallout, no shouting, no late-night confessions. Everything looked the same from the outside, and that made it worse. I thought I'd feel different. Guiltier, maybe. Or braver. But mostly, I just felt split. Like two versions of me were living in parallel, neither of them entirely real. At home, I was the girlfriend. I made breakfast, folded laundry, watched dumb sitcoms on the couch with Marcus while he absent-mindedly rubbed my foot and scrolled through Reddit. At work, I was fine. Smiling. Productive. I learned how to breathe through panic and distraction like it was cardio. But then there was the other me. The one Jamie looked at like I was some kind of secret. The one who couldn't stop thinking about him. We didn't kiss again right away. We didn't talk about what had happened. That was the scariest part, how easy it was to pretend it hadn't happened at all. But the energy between us? It shifted. I'd walk into a room and feel him turn before I said a word. I'd speak and catch him watching my mouth. I started catching my reflection and wondering who I was turning into. Wondering if this was how it started for other people too, the ones we used to judge, whisper about behind their backs. Then came the party. It was a 4th of July thing Marcus's parents throw one every year. Sparklers, burgers, all the small-town clichés. Jamie showed up late. He was wearing a white t-shirt, sunglasses tucked into the collar, and that same damn smirk he always had when he knew he shouldn't be somewhere and came anyway. He made his rounds, said hi to everyone, hugged Marcus. Then he looked at me. Just for a second. But it was the kind of look you feel in your spine. Later, when the fireworks were starting and the crowd's attention turned skyward, Jamie ended up beside me. Too close. Not touching. But there, in my space, like gravity didn't apply to him. This town feels too small lately, he said under the boom of red and gold sparks. I nodded. I couldn't look at him. I was too aware of Marcus just 10 feet away, laughing with his dad, beer in hand, completely unaware that his best friend was setting fires in his girlfriend's chest. I couldn't enjoy the fireworks. All I saw were explosions I hadn't lit, consequences I hadn't felt yet. When we got home, Marcus pulled me in close and whispered, "You're quiet tonight." I said, "Just tired." But the truth? I wasn't tired. I was haunted. By a kiss I didn't stop. By a version of myself I didn't recognize. By a boy who wasn't mine, in a house that didn't feel like home anymore. After the 4th, things got harder to hide, not because anyone found out, but because I couldn't pretend as easily anymore. It's wild how something as small as a glance can change everything. How a single look between two people can feel louder than fireworks. And once it's happened, once that line's been crossed, there's no way to walk it back without leaving footprints. Marcus wasn't stupid. He wasn't oblivious, either, just trusting. He didn't snoop through my phone. He didn't interrogate me when I came home late from a staff meeting that was just me sitting in my car, trying not to text Jamie. But he felt it. I could see it in the way his sentences trailed off, like he was waiting for me to jump in. I could hear it in the pauses, the ones that didn't used to exist. One morning, as I was making coffee, Marcus said, "You've been different lately." I froze with my hand on the mug handle. He didn't say it with anger. It was worse. He said it with hurt, like someone noticing the weather had changed and hoping it wasn't the start of a storm. "Just tired," I replied, default excuse number one. "Work's been a lot." He nodded slowly. "Yeah. I get it. I miss you." I felt something in my chest fold in on itself. I wanted to say I missed him too. I wanted to mean it. But instead, I smiled the tight, practiced kind and kissed his cheek before walking out the door like a coward. That same day, Jamie texted me. "Jamie, you free later? Thought we could drive out past the ridge. Stars are insane tonight." I stared at the message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the screen. I should have said no. I should have said anything that resembled a boundary. Instead, I typed, "What time?" We drove out to the edge of town in his beat-up Jeep, the kind of road where no one goes unless they know where it leads. The sky was wide open. 1,000 stars blinked down at me like tiny little witnesses. We didn't talk much. Jamie had a way of making silence feel intentional, not awkward. We sat on the hood, our shoulders barely touching, the only sound the chirping of summer bugs and the creak of metal cooling under the night air. And then he reached for my hand. I let him. I should have pulled away. I didn't. His thumb brushed across my knuckles like he'd done it 100 times before. I didn't move. Eventually, he looked at me. "You don't have to keep pretending." I swallowed hard. Pretending what? That this doesn't mean something. I turned my face away, toward the dark trees in the distance. "It's not that simple." "Yeah," he said softly. "It is. You just don't want it to be." That night, when I got home, Marcus was still awake. He asked how my evening was. I lied, again. Said I stayed late at work. We watched half a movie in silence before he fell asleep with his head on my shoulder. I stared at the black TV screen, thinking about how close lies live to love. Sometimes they sleep in the same bed. The lie didn't unravel all at once. It frayed. It started with Marcus's questions getting quieter and scarier. Little things like, "Did you say you were with Claire or Katie last night?" Or, "You didn't answer my text, everything okay?" I was always okay. I was always just tired. I had a rotating cast of excuses: car trouble, work deadlines, friend drama. The lies came so easily I started to resent how effortless they were. But I knew he was starting to see it. One night, I came home late, later than usual, after being with Jamie. We hadn't kissed again. Not that night. But we'd talked, really talked, like two people dangling off the edge of a cliff, both pretending we didn't notice the drop. When I walked in the door, Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. Just like that. Silent. Waiting. A shadow with arms crossed. My heart went sideways in my chest. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. "Why are you up?" He looked at me for a long time. Not angry. Not accusatory. Just hollow. "Who is he?" I froze. "What?" Marcus stood, slow, like he was trying not to spook me. "I'm not stupid, okay? I'm not blind. You think I haven't noticed the way you pull away when I touch you? The way you smile like you're somewhere else?" My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My brain was racing, spinning, crashing into itself. "I haven't checked your phone," he said. "I haven't followed you. But I know. I've known." He rubbed a hand across his face and laughed, not because it was funny, but because that's what people do when they're holding back tears. I just kept hoping I was wrong. I felt sick. My throat was dry. My legs wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go that wouldn't still be me when I got there. "It's not what you think," I whispered. It was the worst thing I could have said, the most tired, useless lie in the book. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay. He walked past me, into the bedroom, and closed the door. Not slammed. Not locked. Just closed, like you'd close a chapter you didn't want to reread. I stood in the kitchen, the clock ticking like it was mocking me. I looked at my reflection in the microwave door, hollow-eyed, guilty, and smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. I hadn't even told Jamie what he was to me. I hadn't told Marcus what he wasn't anymore. I had built an entire summer out of indecision. Out of avoiding the truth like it was something I could outrun. But the thing about almosts, the almost kiss, the almost confession, the almost endings, is that they leave you just as broken. Maybe more. The morning after Marcus closed the bedroom door on me, I stared at the ceiling and waited for something to happen, a scream, a goodbye, a fight. But there was nothing. Just the clink of coffee mugs, the sound of drawers opening and closing, the rhythm of a man going through the motions of letting go. When I walked into the kitchen, he was already dressed. He didn't look up. "I'm gonna stay at my brother's for a bit," he said, voice even. Too even. My heart dropped. "Marcus, wait." He finally looked at me. And it broke me. Because there was no rage, no bitterness, just a deep, echoing sadness. Like he'd already buried something. "I don't want to hear excuses," he said. "I don't want you to try and explain how it wasn't what I think. You cheated. Whether it was one kiss or 100. Whether it was physical or not. You left me long before you left this apartment." The worst part was knowing he was right. He didn't slam the door. He just walked out, and the silence that followed was louder than any fight we could have had. I didn't call Jamie. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I didn't know what we were. I destroyed something solid and real chasing a version of myself I wasn't even sure I liked. Jamie was freedom, sure, adventure, spontaneity, escape. But when the dust settled, I wasn't sure if I loved him or if I just hated what my life had turned into. And Jamie? He didn't come running. A few days later, I saw him downtown. He waved. I waved back. That was it. Because the thing no one tells you is that sometimes cheating doesn't lead to a new relationship, or a dramatic new chapter. Sometimes, it just leaves you alone in the wreckage you created, trying to figure out why you lit the match in the first place. Marcus never came back. We didn't do the dramatic, drawn-out post-breakup dance. He picked up his things one Saturday while I was out, left his key on the counter, and that was that. People still ask about us sometimes. I smile. I say, we grew apart. It's easier than explaining how you can love someone and still leave them. How you can break someone's heart with 1,000 small decisions you never meant to make. How cheating doesn't always start with a choice. But it always ends with one.